the idea of this AI clone is kind of like that, which is it's a version of a ChatGPT type thing that has learned a lot about you, right? And then once it's learned about you, public facing, right? It's actually out there into the world where anybody can log in, go see it, and have a conversation with you, or at least the AI version of you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a concept called an AI clone. Okay, what is it? Well, I'll tell you all about it in the episode. What is an AI clone? How you can create one of yourself, and then how you can get your clients interacting with the AI clone in order to build trust with you. It's a really interesting idea. And if you think it's just this futuristic thing, I'll show you, or at least I'll allude to it in the episode, how I know real people in the Canadian financial industry using this today to generate results for themselves. So if the idea of an AI clone at least seems interesting to you, I'm going to break it all down in this episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. See you on the other side. Okay, today we're going to be talking about this cool concept, something I've stumbled across, something that Massimo, who's my business partner, actually pointed me to. At one point, actually, we were thinking about it as a startup idea, maybe ourselves, and we did a quick Google and realized that someone had done it better than we could possibly imagine. But it was a cool concept I want to talk about here. So it's this idea of an AI clone. Okay, so that sounds a little bit ominous, a little bit futuristic. Hey, I'm being cloned using AI. And the answer is kind of. I mean, of course, all these things, they aren't going to be exact. They're generalizations, right? I mean, ChatGPT itself is a compression. It's a generalization of the internet. It does a pretty good job of that. And any tool, built on it is going to be a generalization of a person, we talked about here. But it is a little bit. So I'm going to show you it. I'm going to do a screen share. And again, if you're listening, just listening, I will explain it out loud as I go. But what is this idea? So what it is, it's a service called Delphi, Delphi .ai. You have to do .ai, I guess, if you're a startup company. And what it is, think of it like this, the best way I describe it. So for anybody who's been using ChatGPT for a long time, you know that as you type, ChatGPT gets to know you a little bit better, right? So, for me and my ChatGPT, I can just say, hey, I'm doing a podcast, and it would respond and say, hey, I assume this is probably for Mortgage Tech Talks, right? And yeah, it's true because it's learning about you, right? So it's getting to know you, get to know you. And so the idea of this AI clone is kind of like that, which is it's a version of a ChatGPT type thing that has learned a lot about you, right? Probably, and there's different ways you can get it to learn about you, which I'll talk about in a second. And then once it's learned about you, it's public facing, right? It's actually out there into the world where anybody can log in, go see it, and have a conversation with you, or at least the AI version of you. So how does this work? I'll show you the best way really to show, I think, is just to show it in an example. So let's just do that right now. Okay, so yes, here is a great example. So this is someone I follow, and her name's Balaji. I'm going to try and say his last name. It's Indian last name, but a lot of people know him as Balaji. He's the CTO, former CTO of Coinbase, which is, of course, a big cryptocurrency exchange. And he's a big kind of thought leader in, the Silicon Valley space, cryptocurrencies. And of course, he's someone that I follow. So this is his page. So this is what he's already gone through all the exercise. He's already trained the AI. He's packaged it up. And so now what I'm looking at actually is his AI clone, which is pretty cool. So you can see, okay, it talks about, okay, who am I? A little bit of a description, and then just gets right into it and says, what are some things that people want to ask me, right? So real quick, if I'm thinking about this in the mortgage sense, this is exactly the area where you would train your AI clone to say, hey, if someone comes and visits you, suggest questions like, hey, should I go with a fixed or a variable rate? What are the pros and cons, right? Though that could be a question, a suggested question. And then for someone who is visiting your AI clone, they can look at it and say, oh, shoot, I have that exact same question. How would you, Tom, the mortgage broker, respond to it? So same thing here. When I look at this, Balaji, and, he's suggested some questions, I can look at this. It says, hey, can you share your thoughts on potential impact of blockchain technology beyond cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin? Hey, that's an interesting thing. Me personally, I don't think there are a lot of applications of blockchain beyond crypto, but I'd love to hear what Balaji has to say about it. So let's click. So I click that, and very much so like you would expect, it opens up a chat, just like you would do ChatGPT. But again, this isn't ChatGPT. This is Balaji's ChatGPT. So it opens it up and you can see it goes right into it. It starts talking about decentralized finance, supply chain transparency, digital identity, tokenization of assets, all very interesting things, decentralized governance. And I won't go through all of this, immutable records and decentralized truth, yeah, and good and bad things, but all these. But there it goes. And it's a little bit long, and maybe that's something that this tool needs to work on. But now I can get into it and I can say, Balaji, let's actually see here. What do you mean by DeFi? And my big thing is like to say, okay, and who would protect, maintain, mine that blockchain? Question mark. And then it starts being a chat here, right? And then so now this tool, this then goes out as Balaji would and says, what is DeFi? What are the great things about it? And who actually maintains this? And he goes into proof of stake, like things like ETH, economic incentives that are an important part of it, layer 2 scaling solutions, all interesting ideas. And if all those things that I just said don't make a ton of sense to you, that's fine. They're more blockchain type things, which, nerds like me like to, I guess, geek out on a little bit. But that's the kind of the idea of it, right? And it's pretty cool, right? You get to have an expert to actually have a conversation with. Now, the really cool part, and then I'll kind of get back to, bring it back to the mortgage space, is not only can you do a chat like ChatGPT, you can actually do a phone call, right? So in the top right corner, I can actually have a phone call with Balaji. It works the exact same way. You ask questions, it responds as he would, but it's in his voice too, right? So it's actually his voice, and it sounds a lot like you're having a phone call. So you can connect. I'll say, wow. And it's starting to think for me. And I can just ask it a simple question like, hey, what's Bitcoin going to be in a year?
Predicting Bitcoin's price a year from now is like trying to forecast the weather in a chaotic system.
I mean, I don't know if you guys heard that, but he said predicting Bitcoin a year from now is like predicting the weather in a chaotic system a year from now. Great answer. That's probably exactly how he would respond, and it's in his voice. So it's really quite cool, and I recommend anyone, you can use this guy or you can use anybody else, but actually start to use this type of tool. So that's super cool. Love it. Really, the phone call is a great way to understand it and experiment with it, and it's all there. So really how this whole thing works is it's very much like ChatGPT. You can sign up for one of these things. You can load up. So this is what Balaji would have done, and this is what I'm saying, maybe some mortgage brokers out there might be able to do. You can sign up and basically you can just load up a bunch of things, right? So you can, connect your YouTube and podcast. If you do that, you can just train it with words. You can have up to 100,000 training words, or sorry, up to 5 million training words. That's what it says. And then there's a bunch of other things. So the idea is, you just basically go in, you say, here are my opinions about this. This is how I feel about fixed and variable rates. So it's a bit of work, right? Admittedly, it is. And that's probably why they do YouTube and podcast syncs, because if people have channel out there, it's easy enough just to load that up. And, all your, I guess, background knowledge, your subconscious thinking as it relates to these things are just kind of in those channels, right? Whether it be a podcast or a YouTube channel. So that's pretty cool, right? So that's the idea of it, right? So let's go back to, hey, how can mortgage brokers actually use this, and should they go ahead and do it? I mean, beyond it just being a very cool tool and kind of surreal and interesting to try and have an AI clone of yourself, how can it actually help your business? A couple ways kind of come to mind, and this is not something I just thought off the top of my head. This comes from things that the website itself suggests. First of all, it could be a great lead source, right? You think about this, right? Someone comes to your website. Again, more and more people are going to the website. And instead of some people have a chat bot, and that's okay. Some people have a, hey, just call me button there. Just have this instead, right? And it's a great way to do it, because in order to interact, just like I had to interact with Balaji, actually put in my email, not my password, sorry, my email and my name, right? I think I connected through Gmail. And so just like that, right? I'm collecting this email list. I have a great list of people who have come to my website and are interested in talking with me, but they can get instant answers, which is great, which is probably what they want. And so that's great for them. And it's great for you in that you don't have to, work or, I guess, dedicate a ton of time. The AI clone can do it for you and almost qualify these people. And so that's, I guess, the next thing I would say as an interesting thing, where not only for brand new leads can you kind of qualify them, make sure they're worth your time, you can also do it to old clients, right? Or maybe even old people you talked to that didn't go anywhere, right? Where it says, hey, Tom, we talked 2 years ago. You're looking at a condo. It didn't work out. But hey, I have this brand new tool, and it's a great way to get your certain questions answered as it relates to mortgages. Send them a link to your own version of Delphi, and now they have to get to have that conversation. So it's a nurturing tool. Right? It's not about just identifying and making it easy for new people to enter your funnel. It's also about, okay, once they're in that funnel, how do I get them to the point where they're trusting you, right? And that's kind of the cool thing about this is that they start interacting with this, and they start, especially if they do the voice mode and they're hearing your voice, it's triggering some subconscious, I guess, attachment to you, right? Because you become that person who is giving them advice that relates to the mortgage. So again, that's maybe a bit more dystopian and maybe the scarier part of it. I don't know. But the fact is this technology exists, and it's up for anyone out there to decide if they want to use it or not. But the point is that definitely happens, right? Even listen to Balaji there for 2 seconds. I feel like I'm actually talking to a person. I'm building that trust. So it's a great way to nurture, which I think is really interesting. And the last way, this one is, again, maybe just more from the website. I don't see a huge help for this from mortgage brokers, but I'll just throw it out there is you can monetize some of your content, right? So you can say, hey, this part of my knowledge base that I've downloaded into the tool is only accessible if someone pays a little bit of money. But I would put that to the side because really I think it's about finding leads, but really that nurturing part is where I get really excited. Now, I think this has to go without saying. I don't know where to put it, but I'll just put it here. For mortgage brokers who are thinking about this, of course, you have to be not worried, but mindful, right? There's a big difference between worried and mindful. And I talked about that in last week's episode. Worried is I'm scared of it. I don't want to look at it the other way. Mindful is just being, I understand the risk and I'm accepting that risk and I'm taking the right steps to manage that risk. And what I'm saying is just being mindful about privacy, of course, we talked about that last week, but also just the advice being given, right? There have been edge cases you've heard about. I think it's more lawyers where they use these tools give advice and then people sue them because they gave wrong advice. So my really advice with it, especially in a regulated industry, is to keep it more just educational, right? Fixed or variable, what's the difference? You go with fixed in this case, you go with variable in that case, right? I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm just giving you general advice. Okay, so people out there are kind of saying, okay, what's the impact, right? Tom, you talked about it being dystopian. Yes, there's some ways that, mortgage brokers could use it, but should I be worried about this? Should I be thinking about it? What I'd say is two things. One, I think you should be conscious of it in the sense that I know people who are using this already. Admittedly, it's not in the Canadian mortgage space. We also work with financial advisors, and we know multiple financial advisors who are using this tool on a day-to-day basis. I won't say their names just to kind of respect their privacy. I haven't asked them for it, but I know them and I'm looking at their page right now. You guys can't see it, but I can see it. And it goes in and it says, hey, what should I know about loans from life insurance? It's a bit of an obscure thing, but obviously this is an area, a domain that this person is really knowledgeable in. And I can click that question. I can get his specific answer to that, right? So this is real, right? This is happening right now in Canada in the financial services space. People are using this tool. And I know since I've talked to this guy, people are interacting. This isn't just a cool boondoggle. It is something that his clients are interacting with. And I don't know the impact. I mean, it's hard to measure, but I can't imagine it's doing anything bad unless he's violating certain risk and privacy issues. But if you stay within the lines, it can only be a good thing, right? It can only help build that trust. So it's here. It's absolutely here. And I think if anyone's saying, hey, this is a cool thing, maybe I'll try it, but it's not going to go anywhere, I would challenge you and say, yes, try it because it's a cool thing. But there's real life implications already happening, real life gains already happening from tools like this. And then the second thing, I think, of course, and I keep repeating myself for this, but I'll say it again. Some people might look at this and say, well, shoot, if I just have an AI clone, what am I going to do all day, right? If something's can answer these questions just as good as I can, well, what are we doing here? Why don't I just make an AI clone? I'm going to make 25 AI clones. I can just go out in the world and do 25 of the conversations that I would normally do, and I can just sit back and do it. And what I'd say to that is these tools are great at general knowledge, right? General, hey, fixed versus variable, what's the difference? It's going to be great at that, right? And again, the value is delivering, because there's also 1,000 articles online about fixed versus variable, and they probably say similar things. But the value of using this tool is that you are delivering that message in your voice, in your tone, which is really the value with this. But that's general knowledge. Where you come in and where you'll always come in, and I do mean that always, not for the next 5 years or 10 years. I do think it's always is your specific knowledge, right? Being able to take things that you know about fixed versus variables, but also specifically what's going on in the market, rates right now, conditions, lender guidelines, all these different things, which is quite specific. And then applying it to the client's specific situation, right? Being able to do that, and not only be able to do that once, but repeatedly and consistently, and always update your knowledge, your specific knowledge, so you can always give the most up-to-date advice. That's where the value is going to be. So as it relates to these tools, someone comes in, asks about fixed versus variable, and this is all stuff you can get as a report from the thing, right? Where if one of your clients is interacting with your AI bot, you can get a report and say, look, Sally, who's my client who I sent this over, she's had a long conversation. You asked a lot about fixed versus variables and condos. Maybe I'll give her a call and I'll actually give her specific advice, knowledge that will apply to her situation that will be useful. That's where you come in. So if you can combine the general knowledge to nurture and build trust, this tool, with your specific knowledge, that's how you win. That's how this thing becomes very valuable. So I'll leave it at that. I guess just before I wrap up, the only kind of, I think, interesting thing I'll throw out there, it's a bit of a morbid take, but I think these things are exciting, but it's really weird. I was thinking about, hey, what happens? I'm looking at, use Balaji again. What if Balaji got struck by lightning tomorrow? Well, I could still talk to him. I could still talk to his AI clone. I could hear his voice. I could hear his opinions. It's not going to stay up to date because probably his opinions evolve over time. But as of that date, as of this, AI clone being created, I can have that conversation. So it's really, really crazy. And if you think about that with your family members or great grandma who's, baby passed away, and being able to have that conversation with her, if she had done this clone, maybe our great grandchildren are going to be able to talk to our AI clone. That's crazy. And I don't want to think about it too much, but it's just a cool thing to think about maybe. So in any case, I'll leave it at that. I hope you guys appreciate this episode. We'll see you next week.